Good evening, and welcome to Truth Report. I'm Alex Truth, and tonight we're pulling back the curtain on stories that reveal the hidden architecture of global power.
And I'm Maya Clarity. From drone swarms over Chinese cities to the mineral wars reshaping global alliances, tonight's show connects dots that mainstream media won't touch. 5 stories, 1 truth. The battle for the 21st century is being fought on fronts you never knew existed.
We're talking AI logistics revolutions, espionage in the heart of Europe, and oil deals that rewrite decades of geopolitical alignments. These aren't isolated headlines. They're pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, show you exactly who's winning and who's being left behind.
So buckle up. This is investigative journalism that names names and follows the money. Let's start with something that sounds like science fiction but is happening right now in the world's second-largest economy.
Breaking news from the South China Morning Post: China just achieved something that should terrify Western logistics companies. Their ratio of logistics costs to GDP has dropped to 13.9%, the lowest ever recorded, down from 14.1% just last year.
Now that number might sound abstract, but let me translate it into real terms. For every 100 yuan of economic activity, China is now spending less than 14 yuan moving goods around. In the United States, that figure hovers around 17 to 18%. That's a massive competitive advantage being built drone by drone, algorithm by algorithm.
The National Development and Reform Commission released these figures, and they credit 2 things: massive infrastructure investment and what they call rapid adoption of new technologies. But let's be specific about what that means. We're talking about AI-powered logistics networks that optimize delivery routes in real time across a country of 1.4 billion people.
And the drone delivery systems aren't pilot programs anymore. They're operational at scale. We're seeing drones delivering packages to rural villages that would take trucks hours to reach. We're seeing automated sorting centers that run 24/7 with minimal human intervention. This is the future of commerce, and China is building it while the West debates regulations.
Here's what the mainstream coverage misses: this isn't just about cheaper shipping. This is about economic warfare through efficiency. When your logistics costs are 4 percentage points lower than your competitors, you can undercut them on every single product. Manufacturing, agriculture, retail, everything becomes more competitive.
The infrastructure investment piece is equally significant. We're talking about a country that has built more high-speed rail in 2 decades than the entire rest of the world combined. Now they're integrating those rail networks with automated warehouses, drone delivery hubs, and AI dispatch systems that make Amazon's operations look primitive.
And who benefits? Chinese manufacturers gain even more pricing power in global markets. Chinese consumers get faster, cheaper delivery. But the real winners are the tech companies building these systems. We're watching the birth of logistics giants that will dominate global supply chains for decades.
Who loses? American and European logistics companies that have underinvested in automation for years. Workers in traditional trucking and delivery who are watching their jobs evaporate. And ultimately, Western economies that are falling further behind in the race to automate supply chains.
The broader pattern here is unmistakable. China is systematically building the infrastructure of the 21st century economy while the West fights culture wars and bails out banks. This logistics revolution connects directly to their manufacturing dominance, their export capabilities, and their growing economic leverage over developing nations.
Speaking of leverage, let's pivot to our second story, which shows exactly how countries are navigating this new landscape of great power competition. The South China Morning Post is reporting that Malaysia is making a calculated bet on critical minerals that could reshape its relationship with both Washington and Beijing.
Here's the headline: Malaysia wants American investment and technology to build downstream mineral processing industries, but they're keeping their ban on raw rare earth exports firmly in place. In other words, they're saying to Washington, you can be our partner, but you won't be our master.
This is a masterclass in middle power diplomacy. Kuala Lumpur understands that they're sitting on resources that both superpowers desperately need. Rare earths are essential for electric vehicles, wind turbines, smartphones, and military systems. Without them, the green energy transition stalls. Without them, advanced weapons systems can't be built.
The ban on raw exports is the key policy lever here. Malaysia is saying, if you want our minerals, you have to process them here. That means building factories in Malaysia, hiring Malaysian workers, transferring technology to Malaysian companies. It's a development strategy disguised as trade policy.
The Americans are courting them aggressively because Washington is desperate to break China's stranglehold on rare earth processing. Right now, China processes roughly 70% of the world's rare earths, even when the raw materials come from other countries. That's a strategic vulnerability that keeps Pentagon planners up at night.
But here's where it gets interesting. The analysts quoted in this report say Malaysia is walking a tightrope. They want American capital and technology, but they're terrified of being seen as picking sides in the US-China contest. Beijing is their largest trading partner. Chinese investment flows through Malaysian ports. They can't afford to antagonize either superpower.
So who benefits from this arrangement? Malaysian politicians get to claim they're bringing high-tech industries home. American companies get access to critical mineral supplies without being completely dependent on China. And ironically, this arrangement might actually benefit China too, because a diversified supply chain reduces the pressure on Beijing to maintain its processing monopoly.
Who loses? Countries that are willing to ship out raw materials without conditions. They're watching Malaysia demonstrate that resource nationalism, done strategically, can attract investment rather than repel it. Mining communities in Africa and South America might start asking why their governments don't drive harder bargains.
The connection to the China logistics story is crucial. Both demonstrate how countries are positioning themselves in a global economy where supply chains are weapons. China is winning by building the most efficient domestic logistics network. Malaysia is trying to win by making itself indispensable in the mineral supply chain. Same game, different strategies.
Now let's shift to a darker theater where AI and drone technology aren't optimizing deliveries. They're optimizing violence. Al Jazeera is reporting on how ISIL and Al-Qaeda-linked groups in the Sahel region are using drones to target military positions and gather intelligence.
This is a story that Western audiences need to understand because it previews the future of asymmetric warfare. For years, drones were the exclusive domain of wealthy nations. The United States used Predators and Reapers to hunt terrorists from Nevada control rooms. Now that technological advantage is evaporating.
Armed groups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are acquiring commercial drones and modifying them to carry improvised explosive devices. These aren't sophisticated military systems. They're consumer products that anyone can buy online, weaponized by people who learned bomb-making in failed states.
The intelligence gathering capability is almost more concerning than the attack function. These groups are using drone surveillance to map military positions, track patrol routes, and plan ambushes. It's the same capability that major militaries have used for decades, now in the hands of organizations that want to establish medieval theocracies.
Experts interviewed by Al Jazeera say this is fundamentally changing the security calculus in the Sahel. National armies that were already struggling against insurgencies now face adversaries who can see them coming. Bases that once seemed secure are vulnerable to drone strikes. The information asymmetry that favored state forces is disappearing.
And here's the question that should haunt defense planners: where is this technology coming from? Commercial drones are manufactured primarily in China, with DJI controlling roughly 70% of the global market. The AI systems that make autonomous flight possible are developed by companies in Silicon Valley, Shenzhen, and Tel Aviv. The technology is out there, and it's proliferating.
Who benefits from this proliferation? Obviously, the armed groups themselves gain tactical advantages. But also the defense contractors who are now selling counter-drone systems to African governments. Companies like Anduril and Rafael are making billions selling solutions to a problem that emerged from commercial technology going global.
Who loses? The civilian populations caught in the crossfire of these conflicts. When insurgent groups have better reconnaissance, they can stage more effective attacks. When governments respond with more surveillance and airstrikes, civilians pay the price. The security situation in the Sahel has deteriorated dramatically, and drone technology is accelerating that collapse.
The connection to our China logistics story is unsettling. The same drone technology that's delivering packages in Shanghai is being weaponized in the Sahara. The same AI that optimizes supply chains can optimize kill chains. We're watching dual-use technology create wildly different futures in different parts of the world.
Let's stay with the theme of technology and espionage for our fourth story. The South China Morning Post is reporting that a German court has just sentenced a U.S. military contractor to 2 years and 8 months in prison for offering sensitive information to China.
The defendant, identified only as Martin D., was a civilian contractor working at a U.S. military base in Germany. According to prosecutors, he contacted Chinese government agencies multiple times and offered to pass on sensitive information. The trial was held partially behind closed doors, which tells you something about the nature of the information involved.
Let's be clear about what this case represents. This is an American citizen working on an American military base in a NATO ally country, offering to spy for China. The security implications are staggering. If Beijing can recruit sources this close to U.S. military operations in Europe, where else have they penetrated?
The German court handling the prosecution is itself significant. This case was tried under German law because the espionage occurred on German soil. It demonstrates how counterintelligence has become a multinational endeavor. The Americans identified the threat, the Germans prosecuted it, and the information at risk concerned NATO operations generally.
What we don't know is potentially more important than what we do know. What information did Martin D. actually pass to Chinese handlers? The closed-door proceedings suggest it may have involved classified military systems, base security protocols, or intelligence about U.S. force posture in Europe. 2 years and 8 months is a relatively light sentence, which might indicate he was caught early or that he provided cooperation.
The broader context here is a wave of Chinese espionage targeting Western military and technology sectors. We've seen cases involving semiconductor secrets, aerospace engineering, academic research, and now direct military intelligence. Beijing is running a comprehensive campaign to acquire technological and strategic advantages through any means available.
Who benefits from this espionage? Chinese military planners gain insights into American capabilities and vulnerabilities. Chinese technology companies gain shortcuts that save years of research and development. The Chinese Communist Party gains leverage in any potential confrontation over Taiwan or other flashpoints.
Who loses? American taxpayers who fund military research that gets stolen. Allied nations whose security is compromised by leaks. And ultimately, global stability, because when one side believes it has better intelligence about its adversary, the temptation to take risks increases. Miscalculation becomes more likely.
The connection to our Malaysia minerals story is direct. Both illustrate different aspects of the US-China competition. Malaysia is navigating economic relationships. Martin D. was exploiting security relationships. But both are fronts in the same underlying struggle for technological and strategic supremacy.
Now for our final story, and this one is a geopolitical bombshell. Middle East Eye is reporting that Venezuela has made its first crude oil shipment to Israel since 2009. Let that sink in. Venezuela. Israel. Two countries that haven't had this kind of commercial relationship in nearly 2 decades.
To understand why this matters, you need to understand the history. Venezuela under Hugo Chavez became one of Israel's harshest critics in Latin America. Chavez cultivated relationships with Iran, expressed support for Palestinian causes, and severed diplomatic relations with Israel over the Gaza conflict. The idea of Venezuelan oil flowing to Israeli refineries was unthinkable.
So what changed? Nicolas Maduro is under crushing economic pressure. Venezuelan oil production has collapsed from over 3 million barrels per day to barely 1 million. International sanctions have limited their export markets. The regime is desperate for hard currency, and apparently desperate enough to sell to a country they've rhetorically condemned for decades.
On the Israeli side, this represents a significant shift in energy sourcing. Israel has traditionally relied on crude from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and various African producers. Adding Venezuelan heavy crude to the mix diversifies their supply and potentially offers better pricing. It's a pragmatic move in a volatile energy market.
But let's not pretend this is just about economics. This deal required diplomatic back channels, likely involving intermediaries who could navigate the political sensitivities on both sides. It suggests a warming of relations that goes beyond oil, potentially involving intelligence sharing or mutual interests in containing Iranian influence.
The timing is crucial. This is happening while Israel is engaged in ongoing military operations that have drawn international criticism. Venezuela is distancing itself from the anti-Israel coalition it once championed. These are countries making calculated decisions to prioritize their immediate interests over their ideological postures.
Who benefits? Maduro gets desperately needed oil revenue. Israel gets supply diversification. But the real beneficiaries might be the trading companies and intermediaries who arranged this deal. Commodity traders who can navigate sanctioned markets command premium fees, and this deal has their fingerprints all over it.
Who loses? The Palestinian Solidarity Movement loses a rhetorical ally. Iranian influence in Latin America takes a hit. And populations in both countries who were told for years that the other side represented an existential threat now have to reconcile that narrative with their governments doing business together.
The connection to our other stories is about how rapidly the global order is shifting. China builds logistics supremacy. Malaysia plays both superpowers. Armed groups acquire drone technology. American contractors spy for Beijing. Venezuela ships oil to Israel. These aren't random events. They're symptoms of a world where old alliances and enmities are giving way to pure transactionalism.
Let's pull all of these threads together because the pattern is unmistakable. Every single story we've covered tonight reflects the same underlying reality. The rules-based international order that the West has championed since World War II is fragmenting. Countries and organizations are doing whatever serves their immediate interests, regardless of ideology or historical alignment.
China's logistics revolution demonstrates that authoritarian systems can innovate at scale when they prioritize strategic goals. Malaysia's mineral strategy shows that middle powers are learning to extract maximum value from their resources by playing superpowers against each other. The Sahel drone story reveals that military technology proliferates regardless of export controls or moral considerations.
The German spy case reminds us that the US-China competition is fought on every front, including inside the belly of the American military establishment. And the Venezuela-Israel oil deal proves that money talks louder than ideology when regimes face existential economic pressure. These are the building blocks of a new world order, and it doesn't look like the one we were promised.
The winners in this new order are those who adapt quickly. Countries that build critical infrastructure, control essential supply chains, and maintain strategic flexibility. The losers are those who cling to ideological rigidity or assume that past relationships guarantee future alignment. The world is being repriced in real time.
For ordinary people watching this show, the implications are profound. Your job security depends on your country's position in global supply chains. Your national security depends on whether your government is winning or losing the intelligence war. Your energy prices reflect deals being made between regimes you might find morally repugnant.
The mainstream media will cover these stories as isolated incidents. They'll report the facts without connecting them to the larger transformation underway. That's why Truth Report exists. We believe you deserve to understand not just what happened, but why it matters and who's really benefiting from the chaos.
So what can you do with this information? First, question the narratives you're being fed. When your government talks about allies and adversaries, remember that Venezuela and Israel just did an oil deal. When corporations talk about ethical supply chains, remember that the same drones delivering packages in China are dropping bombs in Africa.
Second, follow the money. Every story we covered tonight involves massive financial flows. Chinese logistics companies. Malaysian rare earth processors. Drone manufacturers. Oil traders. Defense contractors. These are the actors shaping your future, and they're not elected by anyone.
Third, demand better from your leaders. Ask them why American contractors are being recruited by Chinese intelligence. Ask them why armed groups in Africa have access to the same AI technology as Fortune 500 companies. Ask them why your country's mineral wealth is being shipped out raw while Malaysia builds processing plants.
The world isn't falling apart. It's being rebuilt according to specifications that serve certain interests. Tonight we've shown you some of those blueprints. What you do with that knowledge is up to you.
For Truth Report, I'm Maya Clarity.
And I'm Alex Truth. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, in a world of competing narratives, the truth is the most valuable commodity of all. We'll see you next time.
Good night, and keep asking the questions that matter.